Hey, Adam.
Good to be with you, Sahar.
Good to be with you too. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this video where we wanted to continue talking about our graduate engaged pathway, which is something new that we're trying this year.
Yep.
And it's a pretty significant paradigm shift, I would say, where we're centering the container of development in addition to the course offerings rather than solely a course offering. So we wanted to talk about some important continuations, I would say, from the professional coaching course, the year-long course. And maybe the first one that I'll talk about is, in the PCC, we often talk about coaching as a vocation.
Right.
And what we mean by that is to live a life of service. That's part of the for the sake of what of our continued development is so we can see how can we be of service to our communities, our families, the moment that we find ourselves in. And so that's going to be a continuing thread throughout the graduate engaged pathway as well, we're going to invite every participant to actually craft a commitment for themselves, which will include hopefully a way that they want to continue to be of service, or perhaps it's a pivot in the way that they want to be of service in their lives. So that's going to be a very intentional focus.
Yeah. And one way that will get expressed that we've talked about is each person in the program naming it in terms of a purpose statement. Mm-hmm. So reconnecting to the methodology and then some outcomes. Mm-hmm. And having that done in pairs and in pods so that it's not just on your own, but you're getting feedback from others as a way of making this commitment explicit and something that can be returned to throughout the year.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is an important continuation is what is it to be in a community of practice?
Right.
So living a life of practice is such an essential part of the PCC and what it is to actually cultivate a body and a spirit that can be in service to life. And so we're going to be re-engaging with practices, generic practices that we're all going to be in together, and deepening our exploration of that. Like practices for the sake of what? What happens when I engage with a particular practice in a particular way, directing my attention?
Yeah.
And so what do I learn about myself and others, and what becomes possible?
Yeah. And it's really the fusion of these two things that are the fuel or the catalyst or the ingredient for the integration sessions that are happening. So those integration sessions are a place to say, okay, what am I learning about myself, about life, as I engage in my practices, as I engage in, if you're in a program, the advanced somatics program, for example, and also as I engage with my commitment in my life, whether that's, my commitment to be more supportive of my children or even my own sense of what I'm up to in the world, however that looks, but a space to pause and see and reflect and hear from others in the cohort about what they're hearing around what is there to keep deepening into, to keep integrating, and also to connect to what is the source of life inside of me that's wanting to come out, and how can I connect to it more deeply based on what I'm noticing through these various things, and then having that become more expressed out in the world. Yeah. And taking the magic of doing that in relationship, right, and in pod, and in a space of a larger cohort. Mm-hmm. So as we were talking about in our other way, we were talking about this class about the container of that. Mm-hmm. So the importance of those spaces like we had in the PCC, which were mentor calls, pod groups, the sessions of integrating and deepening who we are and what we're up to.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the other aspect that we were talking about with the integration sessions is, we live in such a culture of consumerism. Yeah. And so to have a space where, yes, of course, the distinctions and the content that we're going to be offering will be useful. And to have that opportunity to loop back and keep learning and relearning. So another way of talking about it is to continue being in the question, like David White says. Right. So what is it to be in a continued inquiry And as Rilke puts it, someday we may find ourselves living into the answers.
Right.
So that would be maybe a continuous thread that also underlies the pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe the final thing to say in this talk about the pathway is how all of this is aligning around the broader purpose of New Ventures West and what we're all up to as a big global community, which is that everyone uncovers their ability to continuously awaken, so continuously become more of who we are, and deepen, so that all life flourishes and is saturated with meaning, belonging, and contribution. So really this big beacon out in front of us that we can align around and find how is that particularly expressed in my life. And so we're really excited about continuing the journey with you from what happened in the PCC and seeing what branches out now.
So we welcome you to join us. We would really love to play and explore and deepen together.
Yeah. All right, take care. Until next time, friends.